I went out of my way to troll him a little bit now. You want to fight? Come on. I mean, I ain't tripping. You ain't got to troll me. Come see me. That's who I am. I don't do talk well, you know.
Have you heard? Put the pressure on. But Roy Jones came off the ropes when he got pinned there with some beautiful shots back at Tony.
Oh! Big left hook, and down goes Tony! He was caught showing off.
He is undefeated in his 18-year campaign with a record of 47 wins, no losses, 26 wins coming by way of knockout.
It didn't start with a press conference. It didn't come from TMZ or Showtime or a viral gym video with clickbait music and 10 slow-mo uppercuts. It came from a quiet moment, an interview most people would have missed if not for one sentence. Roy Jones Jr., standing in a post-fight haze of sweat and nostalgia, looked dead into the camera and said it, "I'd love to do an exhibition with Floyd." No yelling, no call-out, no desperation. Just a sentence, calmly delivered, and just like that, every boxing fan on the internet forgot how to breathe. Because this wasn't a YouTuber trying to ride a legend's name. It wasn't a washed-up novelty fight built for TikTok replays. This was Roy. The man with the fastest reflexes boxing ever recorded. The man whose highlight reels play like cheat codes. And now suddenly, he's tossing Floyd Mayweather's name into the fire. Floyd, of course, hasn't responded. No post, no promo, not a word. But if you've followed his career, you know that silence is never just silence. It's a move, a test, a way to see if the story has enough heat to burn without him touching a match. And judging by the headlines, the reaction videos, and the fan-made posters flooding Reddit, the answer is already obvious. It does. Whether Floyd ever responds or not, the idea is alive now. And in the world of boxing, an idea is often more dangerous than a punch. So in this video, we're going to break it down. Why Roy made the offer, what history lies underneath it, how Mayweather might be calculating his next move, and why this potential matchup, however unlikely, has already taken over the fight world.
Then don't say it. Because you say it, I take that as you mean it. I'm going to find Godzilla. Crazy to me, bizarre, because why we waiting so?
Roy Jones Jr.'s offer didn't come out of left field, but it felt like it. Because in a sport overflowing with noise, manufactured rivalries, and influencers calling out legends for clicks, his words hit different. There was no bravado, no "I'll knock him out in 2 rounds" energy. Just respect, just intrigue. Just enough to spark a question that spread like wildfire. What if Roy and Floyd actually shared a ring? Now, to understand why that suggestion landed like it did, you've got to remember who Roy Jones Jr. is. He's not just a former champ, he's a generational anomaly. A super middleweight who fought at heavyweight. A man whose hands moved faster than the cameras could follow. A showman who ducked punches with his hands behind his back, danced in real time, and made Hall of Famers look like amateurs. He wasn't just winning, he was redefining what boxing looked like. And while Floyd Mayweather was dominating the lighter divisions with surgical precision, Roy was doing things that made you question physics. These two never crossed paths competitively, different weight classes, different timelines, but their names have always shared air. The technician and the artist, the tactician and the daredevil, the perfect defense versus the unpredictable offense. So when Roy casually offers to do an exhibition with Floyd, it's not a stunt. It's history flirting with fantasy. It's two legacies brushing past each other one more time. Not for belts, not even necessarily for pride, but maybe for the art, for the show, for the fans who still wonder what would happen if two of the sport's most untouchable fighters ever touched gloves, even just once. And that's the genius of Roy's move. He didn't demand, he suggested. And in doing so, he might have given Floyd his next most logical legacy move, if Floyd's interested in something more than protecting the zero.
And if somebody was trying to send me a subliminal message, it worked. Because if you want to prove that you're better than me, I'm always ready, wide open.
When news of Roy Jones Jr.'s offer started making rounds, Floyd Mayweather didn't exactly rush to respond. But then again, he never does. That's part of the mystique. Floyd doesn't react. He calculates. He lets the headlines build, lets the speculation simmer, and only when the timing feels profitable, narratively or financially, does he speak. And when he did acknowledge the buzz, it wasn't with a yes or no. It was with something much more classic Floyd. A smile, a nod, and a perfectly vague answer built to keep the conversation alive without committing to anything real. In a brief media scrum following one of his TMT promotional events in Las Vegas, Floyd was asked point blank, "Would you ever fight Roy in an exhibition?" His response? "Roy's a legend. He did his thing. I respect everything he's done in the sport." Then came the kicker. "I'm always open to entertaining fights, as long as the numbers make sense." That's Floyd speak for maybe, but also probably not, unless the bag is as legendary as the matchup. Let's break that down. Floyd knows the fight game isn't just about skills anymore, it's about spectacle, and Roy Jones Jr. brings exactly that. Even in his mid-50s, the man still moves better than most fighters half his age. Plus, he's fresh off an exhibition bout with Mike Tyson that pulled in over 1 million pay-per-view buys. He's still marketable, still electric, still Roy. And Floyd sees that. But what Floyd also sees is risk. Risk to the brand, to the control, to the narrative he spent decades building. Roy Jones Jr., unpredictable even now, isn't the kind of exhibition opponent Floyd's used to. This isn't a YouTuber swinging wide. This is a real fighter with real timing who can still make you miss and still land a highlight punch. And that's where Floyd hesitates. Not necessarily out of fear, but out of awareness. Roy Jones Jr. isn't an easy night. He's not a walking ATM with gloves on. He's a chessboard full of wild cards. And for a perfectionist like Floyd, that's not just uncomfortable, it's unpredictable. And Floyd hates unpredictable.
Of course, in the sport of boxing, I've accomplished, a little bit more than Manny has accomplished, but he's a solid competitor. Is it good enough for you to win?
For Floyd Mayweather, unpredictability is not part of the business model. His empire, his brand, his undefeated record, his reputation as the ultimate ring technician has been built on control. Control of the fight, control of the narrative, and above all, control of risk. That's why every move he's made post-retirement has followed the same blueprint. Calculated exhibitions, low-stakes opponents, guaranteed payouts. He's fought MMA fighters, YouTubers, kickboxers, anyone who could create buzz without presenting an actual threat. It's not about testing himself anymore. It's about staying in control of the spotlight. But Roy Jones Jr., he doesn't fit the script. Roy's legacy doesn't come from playing it safe. It comes from breaking rules, from throwing lead-left hooks with his hands down, from ducking low and launching counters from impossible angles. Even now, that wildcard DNA hasn't left him. In his exhibition with Mike Tyson, Jones wasn't just a name on the poster. He was moving, weaving, making the ring look like home again. Sure, age has slowed him, but his rhythm, his instincts, his danger, they're still in there, and Floyd knows it. That's why his reaction was so measured. He didn't dismiss Roy outright, because that would shut down the hype, but he didn't say yes either, because that would open the door to something he might not be able to fully script. Instead, he dropped the classic Mayweather line, "If it makes business sense." That phrase has become his escape hatch. It's how he avoids looking like he's ducking while still avoiding any commitment. Because for Floyd, the money always makes sense, unless the risk doesn't. What he's really saying is, I'll fight Roy if I can guarantee control. If the rounds are short, if the rules are tight, if there are no judges, no official winner, that's the Mayweather formula. And unless Roy agrees to those terms, the fight may never happen, because Floyd Mayweather has no interest in stepping into chaos. Not now, not ever.
That of Floyd, Paul took that of Floyd Mayweather. It resulted in some pandemonium here. Try to go out there and make low transgressions. There's a right hand.
And yet, that's exactly what makes this matchup so compelling. Not because it's likely to happen, but because of the friction it creates between two completely different philosophies of boxing. On one side, you have Mayweather, the master of precision, risk aversion, and legacy management. On the other, Roy Jones Jr., a man whose entire career was built on audacity, improvisation, and defying convention. If Mayweather represents the chess grandmaster of the sport, Jones is the jazz musician, unpredictable and fluid, even at 55. The tension between those two energies doesn't need a contract to be interesting. It's already cinematic. And when you look at how Floyd's team has reacted, how quickly they tried to reframe the conversation around legacy preservation and business standards, you start to realize something else. They heard the Roy offer, loud and clear. But instead of responding with the usual dismissiveness reserved for YouTubers or lesser-known exhibition partners, they treated this differently. Because deep down, they know Roy still commands respect. Maybe not as a current threat, but as a fellow legend whose name still moves the algorithm. Floyd has always picked his opponents based on what they bring to the table. Financially, yes, but also narratively. And Roy brings something no one else in the world can offer right now. The aura of being a true rival. Not because of past beef, not because of some viral feud, but because he represents a style and a legacy that stands apart. A style that could disrupt Mayweather's control, even in an exhibition. And that's why Floyd's silence, or carefully worded deflection, isn't just business as usual. It's strategic containment. Because deep down, Floyd Mayweather knows exactly what Roy Jones Jr. would bring into that ring. Not just hooks and movement, but chaos. And for someone who spent the last decade mastering the art of predictability, that kind of chaos is the most dangerous thing of all. And here's the wild part. Roy knows it too. That's why his challenge wasn't framed like a desperate call-out or a clout-chasing headline. It was smooth, calculated, like a man who understands that time might have taken some of his speed, but none of his sharpness. Roy Jones Jr. didn't beg for a fight. He didn't chase Floyd. He simply offered a question Floyd doesn't want to answer. What happens when someone just as legendary steps into the same exhibition space, but refuses to play by your rules? Jones has always been that anomaly. Even now, his legacy is less about titles and more about moments. No one forgets the chicken wing hands behind the back knockout. No one forgets the leap through weight divisions. And that's why this offer matters, because Roy isn't just any retired champ. He's the closest thing Mayweather would ever face to an equally mythic force. And unlike Floyd's recent opponents, social media stars and carefully selected veterans, Roy doesn't need a paycheck. He needs a stage. And that's far more dangerous. Floyd's entire exhibition strategy is built on control, controlling the pace, the opponent, the rules, even the narrative. But Roy Jones? He thrives in unpredictability. He's the kind of fighter who would turn a Floyd exhibition into an actual fight, just enough to make Mayweather uncomfortable, just enough to make fans wonder if the GOAT armor can be scratched, even if only metaphorically. And Floyd, the businessman, knows that, which is why he hasn't said no outright, but also hasn't said yes. Because as much as he loves the spotlight, the one thing Floyd Mayweather fears more than losing is losing control of the narrative. And Roy Jones Jr., he doesn't follow scripts.
So now I move for the rest. My good leg. Done. He gonna try to throw a hook?
So far, Mayweather's response has been exactly what you'd expect from the master of calculated silence. Non-committal, vague, and loaded with just enough ambiguity to keep the media cycle spinning. In interviews and public appearances, he's smiled when asked about Roy. He's nodded. He's thrown out a "we'll see" or a "never say never." But not once has he given a definitive answer. And that, in typical Mayweather fashion, is the answer. Floyd isn't ignoring Roy because he's uninterested. He's waiting to see how loud the buzz gets, how the fans react, how the press frames the narrative. Every time Roy's name trends, Mayweather's team watches the numbers, engagement, traffic, keyword spikes. It's a business equation before it's ever a boxing decision. And right now, Floyd sees potential, but he also sees risk. Because unlike his past exhibition opponents, Roy Jones Jr. brings something Floyd can't predict. Logan Paul was big, but not dangerous. Tension was fast, but overmatched. Deji, Don Moore, John Gotti III, none of them posed a real threat. Roy is different. Even at 55, his ring IQ is unmatched. His footwork still confuses younger fighters. His timing, though slowed, still has bite. If Floyd agrees, the margins shrink. And Floyd doesn't like small margins. It's not about fear of losing in the traditional sense. It's about the brand, the legacy. Mayweather built an empire on flawless execution inside and outside the ring. One off-script moment, even in an exhibition, could unravel years of control. A missed punch, a flash knockdown, a split decision in the court of public opinion. Mayweather doesn't leave room for interpretation, and Roy threatens that. So for now, Floyd watches. He smiles. He sidesteps. Because when you're the king of narrative control, even a pause speaks volume. And as Floyd sits back, letting Roy's challenge float in the air without a firm reply, the boxing world does what it always does. It fills in the blanks for him. Pundits debate whether the silence means Mayweather is intrigued or insulted. Fans argue whether he's plotting a marketing masterstroke or simply brushing it off. And in that uncertainty, Floyd wins. He keeps his options open, his image untarnished, and the conversation centered around him, exactly where he wants it. Meanwhile, Roy Jones Jr. continues doing interviews, dropping hints, keeping the story alive. He praises Mayweather's skills, even as he questions whether the former champ is still willing to step in with someone who actually knows how to win. It's all part of the slow buildup, the kind that doesn't need a contract to draw interest. Just the idea is enough. Two Hall of Famers, two different styles, two different eras, the perfectionist versus the showman. But behind that possibility is a subtle clash of legacy. Mayweather's approach has always been about flawless records, controlled risk, and long-term wealth. Jones, on the other hand, chased greatness through danger, sometimes recklessly, often brilliantly. He took on heavyweights when others wouldn't, kept fighting long after his prime, and paid the price with knockouts and comeback attempts that chipped away at the aura but never the respect. That's what makes this potential fight feel different. It's not about titles, it's not even about competition in the traditional sense. It's about two men who shaped boxing history in completely opposite ways. And now, the public is wondering, will Mayweather step into the same ring with a man whose story stands in contrast to his own? Will perfection meet chaos, or will it all stay hypothetical, with Mayweather watching from the shadows while the world keeps guessing?
You need something wild, you need something crazy.
Pettis coming forward, left hook. It's like I think everyone on the planet, wow, Anthony Pettis is an unabashed fan of Roy.
And that's where the brilliance of Floyd Mayweather's playbook truly comes into focus. He doesn't need to say yes. He doesn't need to say no. He just needs the world to keep asking. In that space between acceptance and decline, he controls the narrative without ever breaking a sweat. Because if there's one thing Floyd has mastered more than defense in the ring, it's attention outside of it. By not responding directly, he lets fans build the hype, lets media outlets spin their own theories, and lets promoters quietly scramble to see if this spark of buzz can be monetized into something real. Roy Jones Jr., of course, knows this game. He's played it himself, though with a very different style. Where Mayweather is deliberate, Roy is impulsive. Where Floyd retreats into silence, Roy charges forward with declarations and challenges. He knows how to draw a headline, how to stir emotion, and how to keep himself in the spotlight long after his prime. But what he doesn't always control is how Mayweather will react. And in that imbalance lies the drama. The real story here isn't whether the fight will happen, it's how two legends are navigating the late stages of their public personas. Mayweather is a businessman first, and he treats every whisper of a fight as a stock to be traded. Jones is a fighter to the core, driven by legacy and pride, and every challenge he throws out is sincere, even if it never lands. So the suspense continues. No posters, no contracts, no footage of face-offs or call-outs, just a conversation happening on its own, fed by fans, fueled by media, and subtly curated by two men who know how to make boxing feel relevant even without throwing a punch.
I don't think he throws another shot. Should have gone down. Should have gone down. Would have given himself a chance to continue.
Even without throwing a punch, Mayweather manages to keep the boxing world on edge. A fight with Roy Jones Jr. isn't about proving who's better, it's about owning the final chapter of their legacies. Two icons, one last moment. Fans aren't chasing stats anymore, they're chasing that old feeling, that magic. And Mayweather's silence? It's not a no. It's a slow burn, a calculated maybe. If you want more on legacy fights, comeback whispers, and the legends still shaping boxing in 2025, subscribe now. The gloves might be off, but the story isn't over.